What up, Sparky? It's your boy Evan here, and you tie your shoes wrong. You tie your shoes wrong, trust me. There's a weak form and a strong form to the regular knot that we all do, right? And I would say most people tie the same knot unless you're some crazy person that came up with some weird way, or you just wear slip-on boots or whatever, right? But we've all pretty much learned the same way, and that's the wrong way. There's a better way to do it. I'm gonna show you that, right? I learned how, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it was interesting for me because I started looking around and I noticed, shoot, man, most people tie their shoes wrong, you know, and I was having my shoes come untied quite frequently, and then I would double knot, and then maybe if it was really important, I'd triple knot it, you know, and that would work. And then I learned how to tie my shoes, and I don't even double knot anymore unless I'm gonna be climbing in trenches all day and like something might actually untie the laces for me. Otherwise, just a regular knot and it never comes apart. I'll show you that, but I eventually ended up realizing that it's a sensitive subject. People get offended by it right away. They're like, you know, if there's anything that I thought I had down, it was tying my shoes. You're telling me that I'm tying my shoes wrong? I've been doing it my whole life, you know, and yes, you're tying your shoes wrong. It's okay though. I remember the first person that I taught, he was 50 years old. He was a journeyman that I worked for, and he wouldn't even let me show him. I had to like practically beg him, like, please believe me, you're doing this wrong. And he got to a place of humility where he was like, okay, show me how to do it. Now, like, I'm gonna keep talking about this real quick. If you wanna just learn how to tie your shoes, you can fast forward through all my BS, get right to where I'm tying my shoes and learn how. But really, I thought it was interesting because this guy, he had to come to a place of humility just to relearn how to tie his shoes. And here's the thing is he did, and he let me show him. And he tied it the right way, and he's like, I don't know if this is any better, you know, and I didn't see him for about a week. A week later, he came up to me and he was like, Evan, it's the greatest thing ever. You taught me how to tie my shoes. And I'm thinking, yeah, I know, because you were tying wrong. And then he started to tell me, you know, my shoes have been coming apart my whole life, and I was trying to come up with some invention on how to keep them together and blah, blah, blah. And from that day on, he said his shoes hadn't come untied for the whole week since I had taught him how. And he said they would normally come untied once a day. So it does matter. It's an important thing. If you're an apprentice, and this is good for you because you don't want to lose time. You're not that valuable as an apprentice. And if your shoes are coming untied and you're wasting time doing that nonsense, that's not going to be good for you. It's also a safety issue. Shoes shouldn't be coming untied, right? But the important thing to note is that he was willing to be vulnerable, right, and uncomfortable to relearn something that, you know, a lot of people take pride in and are kind of like, you know, full of disbelief that they're not tying their shoes the right way. And he did, though. He got uncomfortable with me. He let me, a grown man who was 10, 20 years older than me, he let me teach him how to tie his shoes, you know? And what did he get out of being uncomfortable with me is his shoes never come untied anymore. Like, we solved that problem for him, right? And what I want to share with you is this concept of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And anytime you talk about this, it's like those sayings or whatever, they're cliche and they get taken out of context. And I have 5 rules that I've given my kids for life. And one of them, the middle one, is be comfortable being uncomfortable. But I don't just leave it at that. I give them a full explanation. I'll give it to you right now. And it's this, is that, you know, we all want to be the best, right? You want to be the best at whatever it is. You want to be the best electrician, right? The reality is you're not going to be the best electrician, right? There's probably somebody that's better than you, right? We all have to admit that to ourselves. But what you can do and what is achievable is to be actually in at least the top 10% of electricians in the US, let's say, or maybe even the top 5 is very attainable, right? And you can do that. And here is the key to it, right? It's being, well, by definition, people are average, right? So if you think about a bell curve, what that means is that most people are average. They fall in the middle of this bell curve. And what you need to do, right, is get to that top 10%. And all you need to do is just break out of average, because most people are average. You just need to break out of average, not by much, by like 1 or 2%. And all you have to do that is be 1 or 2% better. But the key is you have to be consistent. You have to be consistent across the board, 1 or 2% better, just a little bit better. And if you maintain that, you will naturally be better than average. And as soon as you're better than average, if you know what a bell curve is, you're already in that top 10%, right? And then if you can continue to be better than that average, you will just continue to rise up. So what that takes, though, is the easiest way to achieve that, rather, I should say, is that if you can find yourself in these situations where you have to have some humility to learn something new, right? Or you have to be the one willing to raise your hand to do the thing that other people won't do, or whatever it is, you're going to end up stretching yourself, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And if you can see those things where you go, I don't want to do that, it's uncomfortable, it might hurt, it might make me nervous, or whatever, and you can get over that weak part of yourself just a little bit, and be comfortable with being uncomfortable, you will naturally hit that 1 or 2% better. And if you're always just okay and comfortable with being uncomfortable, you won't even have to think about it. You will just rise straight into the top. And what you'll see is you will look back at the rest of the average people, and then you'll have a different perspective on it. And you see that most people are not willing to be uncomfortable, that most people are seeking comfort, right? They're seeking an easy route. They're seeking for stuff to just be, I don't really want to deal with it, man. And you know what? If that's good enough for them, that's good enough for them. But if you truly want to be the best, you want to be in the top 10%, take this, be comfortable being uncomfortable, learn some stuff, grow, and it will happen naturally. So that's the pep talk on this one. So get uncomfortable with me, admit that you may not be tying your shoes correctly, and let's learn some stuff real quick, all right? Check this out. All right, so here we go. This is the way basically everybody was taught. It looks something like this. However you do your loops or whatever, that's not really what matters. But if you look at the end result, the knots tend to line up vertically like this. This is the weak form. It might look like that, but if you straighten them out, they tend to line up vertically. Again, this will come apart a heck of a lot easier. So then people do another knot on top of that, and that tends to help. But those are wrong. They're the weak form. Here's a strong form. It looks really similar in how you can tell if you're doing it or not. Your laces will tend to line up going straight across like that. Now granted, they might go a little bit like that, but they tend to want to just go across. Now, this is where you pay attention. This is the difference. Some people start right over left. Some people start left over right. It doesn't matter. Just do it how you start it normally. And then if you did right over left, like I did right there, do your second knot left over right and finish it. The wrong way is if you do right over left, people do right over left for their second one. That's the wrong way. See, it lines up vertically. This comes apart easily. So if you're having a hard time doing this, what I would recommend doing is switching your first knot the opposite way. So if you usually go right over left, switch your first knot to left over right. The reason why that's a lot easier to do is to just start it backwards, and then whichever way you're used to doing your bunny ears, go around the tree or whatever the heck, you do that normally and it'll come out right. So pay attention, whichever way you're starting, make sure your second one goes the opposite direction. And here's the bonus, is that if you're climbing around in trenches all day, things are going to be hitting your knot, trying to take it apart, which is the only way that this will come apart, is that if you started right over left, you finished left over right, and you want to double knot it, go back to right over left again. And pretty much that guy right there is not going to come apart until you take it apart. I guarantee. So if you're not tying your shoes this way and you're an apprentice and you want to add value for not having to stop and tie your freaking shoes, do it this way, you're doing it the right way. You didn't know you were doing it the wrong way, did you?